Hey everybody, hope and pray that you're doing well today as we come to our word from the word. And today that word is wisdom. Wisdom. So today I am thankful for God's wisdom. As we've been going through, thinking about all the things that we're thankful for. And this week you've probably noticed we're in the W's and I pray that you'll see if you stay along all month long and you'll be able to see where that's taking us. But today, I'm thankful for God's wisdom. God knows best, and He always does. And, thankfully, He doesn't go by my wisdom, but I can go off of His wisdom. I can go through my day to day routine, my day to day life, the ups and downs, all trusting in Him because I know that He's wise enough, that He has enough wisdom for the both of us. And then some. I hope you understand just how much more wisdom He has than all of us because He's God. And so as I was thinking about this and, just going through this week, thinking about all the things that I'm thankful for, but to really stop and think that no matter what situation you're going through, no matter what turmoil it may seem that we're in as a nation or people or even throughout the world, the pandemic has shown us all these things, and we've begun to try to live off of our own thoughts and our own thought process and relying on our own wisdom. And oftentimes, I don't know if you're anything like me, when I try to go by my own wisdom, then sometimes I fall flat on my face. Specifically when God has called me to do something else, and then I try to say, well, I can do it a little bit better my way. Now, not that I actually say that, but how often do we do that, right? That in our hearts, this goes back to even some of what we talked about Wednesday night, right? That we're serving God with our whole hearts, and that we're doing the will of God from the heart. But even as we're doing that, we're kind of going against God's wisdom. So as I was thinking about, there's so many passages of Scripture throughout the Bible that we would look and say, well, this displays God's wisdom, and this displays God's wisdom, right? Even all of our interruption and opportunity series that we went through, all the times that God's wisdom was above everything that whoever He was interrupting, right? And all these people, think about Mary and Martha there at the tomb of Lazarus, right? Jesus knew what was coming. His wisdom of waiting a couple more days so that He could be, quote unquote, 4 days late, but right on time. So as I was thinking about all these different ones, Job, even as he goes back and forth and says, look, your ways are not my ways. And God is saying, your ways are not my ways. It's this back and forth that we see. But I even went all the way back to Genesis, and that's what I'm going to read today. Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. Now, this is Joseph. If you remember, you could go through the whole story of Joseph, but as a teenager, as a young man, he has this vision and dream from God, and it tells him what's going to happen in the future. And he tells his brothers that, hey, y'all are all going to bow down to me, and that's what was in the dream. And he, if you know the story, you know what happens. If you don't, I encourage you to go read it in Genesis. And it basically, because he tells them of what dream God had given him, then his brothers end up throwing him into a pit. They pretend that he's dead. His father thinks he's dead. He ends up going into slavery. And there's a whole lot that goes on after he gets into Egypt. But this is at the end after he has been basically put second in command, and God works through him to put him in that place to where not only is his own life spared and his own life elevated essentially in society, but now he was put there because God had a purpose and God had a plan. And his purpose and his plan was to put Joseph there, not just to save his life, not just to save the life of a few people, but no, to save the life of the whole Jewish nation that was being born, essentially, that was coming into existence. And it was because God had a plan and in his wisdom. And And here's what Joseph says, right? So his brothers think that he's going to be upset, that he's going to want to kill them because, hey, they pretended that he was dead. They sold him into slavery, and they had all these evil plans. But here's what Joseph says, Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about as it is this day, to save many people alive. Isn't it amazing? And I often wonder how many times Joseph must have questioned the wisdom of God. I imagine when he was thrown down into the pit, he questioned the wisdom of God. And I imagine that as he was sold into slavery and as he saw his brothers and what they were doing, that he probably, at least at some point, had questioned the wisdom of God. As he was thrown into slavery, did he question the wisdom of God? Even as he was elevated there and became working in Potiphar's home, he may have still wondered what he was doing. And then when Potiphar's wife accused him of rape and threw him into prison, I imagine that he wondered about the wisdom of God. And as he interpreted the dreams there for the two men that worked for the king there, as he interpreted those dreams, and then it came true, and then he was forgotten and left behind for years. I wonder if he questioned the wisdom of God. And even as it came back and he is brought out of prison, I wonder, even through it all, if he was still saying, God, are you still working? There's a whole lot of, I'm just kind of hitting the high notes of that story. And I mean, you can dive into a lot of that. But often, as I'm thinking about things to be thankful for, I can be thankful for God's wisdom because I can identify with some of those days where I felt like I was in the pit, those days where I felt like I was in slavery, right, or imprisoned. And I mean, it may have been even my own doing. A lot of, all that Joseph was going through, it wasn't at his own doing. It wasn't at his own hands, or it wasn't because of sin, right? He was innocent and was thrown into prison. And oftentimes the prisons that I've put myself in, and maybe you found yourself in, were because of the sinful decisions and sinful choices that we've made. But see, knowing this story, knowing all of Scripture, knowing the loving and wonderful, merciful, loving, gracious Father that we serve, I can be thankful that even though others may mean it for evil, that God can mean it for good. This is Romans 8:28, just in the Old Testament, right? Joseph wrote the same thing. It's amazing. God said the same thing in the Old Testament there through Joseph, as he says in the New Testament through Paul, that all things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. See, today I can be thankful that God knows better than I do. That I don't have to worry about tomorrow. I don't have to worry about who's, especially in society today, I don't have to worry about who's telling the truth and what side to believe. I can believe God's side. And I can believe the wisdom of God. And I can believe that no matter what I'm going through, that God has a plan. And the thing is this. See, that might be why I'm thankful for God's wisdom today. But are you thankful for God's wisdom today? Do you understand that the situation that you're in, no matter what it is, that God has a plan? God has a plan to use that situation. I don't know what it is. It may be to reveal some sin in your life. It may also be to reveal the sin in others. It may be there to strengthen your faith. It may be there to pick out a flaw that is something that you needed to work on so that he could strengthen your faith and prepare you for what's coming next. Everything in Joseph's life was preparing him for the next step, till it ultimately got him to the point that God had him in place to save not just one, not just a few, but a whole nation. And I wonder today if maybe God has you right where you are, not just to save one, but that you can be a witness to lead many people to saving knowledge of Jesus Christ right where you are. Now, don't think for a second that he can't do it, because we can be thankful for his wisdom that can make just such a thing happen. So, are you thankful for God's wisdom today? I pray that you are. And I pray that you have a great, great day. God bless you.